These are some of the most wildest people who will do just about any crime. Let's get right into it, starting with number 6. Just shut up and let me invest your money. Brent Seaman, a Florida FOREX trader, found himself at the center of a $35 million scam that targeted elderly and retired members of his church. Seaman allegedly preyed on approximately 60 investors, luring them in with the promise of annual returns ranging from 18 to 48%. He said the investments were safe and that the returns were guaranteed, leading his victims to believe they were making secure financial decisions. But instead of delivering on his promises, Seaman allegedly misappropriated millions of dollars for his personal use, including indulgent purchases of luxury cars and trips on private jets. He also used a portion of the funds to make payments to earlier investors, effectively perpetuating a Ponzi scheme that relied on new investments to pay out old returns. What makes this case really messed up is that Seaman's victims were his fellow church members. Taking advantage of their trust and vulnerability, Seaman targeted these elderly and retired individuals, exploiting their savings for his own financial gain. He not only betrayed their trust, but also jeopardized their financial security. Seaman portrayed himself as a successful venture capitalist and foreign currency trader through his company, Accenito Capital Group. He touted his proven success in currency trading, yet in reality, his trading endeavors were very unprofitable, leading to the loss of millions of dollars in investor funds. The repercussions went beyond just Brent Seaman. His wife was implicated in the alleged scam and was named as a relief defendant. In response to their actions, Seaman and his wife have consented to a settlement with the SEC. Seaman will be barred from serving as an officer or director of any SEC reporting company under the terms of the settlement. Brent Seaman was actually so bad at investing that he was in debt over $14 million when he filed for bankruptcy 10 years before he ripped off his church. It's like he managed to turn a $14 million personal debt into a $35 million church scam. Proof that if at first you don't succeed at getting rich, why not just give outright fraud a shot? Number 5. Psychiatrist holding patients against their will. Dr. Brian Hyatt, a prominent psychiatrist in Arkansas, has come under intense scrutiny for his alleged involvement in a massive Medicaid scam that involved holding patients against their will. Hyatt is currently under investigation by both state and federal authorities and is facing lawsuits from at least 26 patients who claim they were unlawfully detained, part of his scheme. Over a span of 14 months, Dr. Hyatt was accused of orchestrating a sophisticated insurance fraud operation by exploiting vulnerable patients. The patients, many of whom were seeking psychiatric care, were held against their will in his facility, sometimes for weeks on end. The allegations paint a disturbing picture of Dr. Hyatt, with patients claiming that they were essentially imprisoned. Despite the fact that Dr. Hyatt was responsible for their treatment, video footage shows him spending minimal time with his patients, often merely passing them in the hallways without engaging in meaningful interactions. The patients said that their pleas for release fell on deaf ears and that they were subjected to conditions akin to those of prison. The allegations highlight Dr. Hyatt's alleged insurance scam, where he billed Medicaid for patients he barely saw or interacted with. Medicaid paid out over $800,000 to his facility over 3.5 years, an amount that was far more than any other Arkansas psychiatrist. These payments were made despite evidence suggesting that Dr. Hyatt had very limited direct involvement with his patients. Investigations revealed that Dr. Hyatt interacted with patients a mere 17 times over a 45-day surveillance period, amounting to less than 10 minutes per patient. This level of interaction stands in stark contrast to the severity of billing codes he reportedly used for his claims. Dr. Hyatt apparently manipulated the Medicaid billing system by claiming to treat patients he rarely saw, maximizing his reimbursements. The allegations resulted in significant legal action against Dr. Hyatt and the institutions associated with him. Northwest Medical Center, where he served as the medical director of the Behavioral Health Unit, settled for $1.1 million due to insufficient documentation for patient hospitalizations. The whole ordeal sounds like a nightmare scenario from a horror movie, doesn't it? The people just go in to get medication adjusted. The next thing you know, the football dad looking doctor is trying to release eldritch horrors in the basement. Number 4. She didn't start the fire. Courtney Sellers from Screven, Georgia, allegedly coerced her stepchild into setting their home on fire not once, but twice, as part of a scheme to fraudulently claim insurance money. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation said that the Jessup Fire Department responded to a fire at their residence, only to uncover evidence suggesting that Sellers had orchestrated the blaze for financial gain. Upon thorough examination of footage and interviews, investigators concluded that Sellers had convinced her stepchild to start fires in their home, all for the purpose of collecting insurance payouts. Fire and lighting claims insurance, typically covering the destruction caused by fires, had an average payout of $77,340. Following an inquiry by the State Fire Marshal's Office in response to the Jessup Fire Department's request, Sellers was arrested. Wayne County Sheriff's Office provided video and audio evidence from the day of the fire, which led to charges against Sellers. Her alleged actions carry a potential prison sentence of at least 9 years. And this is just our opinion. Maybe we're crazy for having it, but we're gonna say it anyway. Courtney Sellers is not a responsible stepmother. Feel free to disagree with us in the comments if you like, but that's our hot take and we're sticking to it. Number 3, Forever Piggy Bank. Over a 14-month span, Daniel Cuthbert carried out a heartless scheme, preying on his own grieving father to steal $70,000. Cuthbert systematically drained his father's entire life savings, exploiting a trust that should have been sacred. Even though his dad was suspicious about his savings slowly disappearing, Cuthbert continued to take the money as though it was his. His father, even attempting to confront Daniel about the theft, was just too stricken with grief to really push the matter further. Cuthbert used various tactics to extract the money. He moved substantial sums into his personal account and even impersonated his deceased mother in phone calls to banks so he could transfer funds on at least 8 occasions. His manipulative calls involved him adopting a female voice to assume the role of his deceased mother, tricking the employees into making the transfers. Cuthbert also took out loans under his father's name, resulting in the father losing his house as he became engulfed in insurmountable debt. Cuthbert was ultimately arrested, pleaded guilty to false representation, was jailed for 2 years, and got slapped with a 5-year restraining order. It's crazy that someone could look at their own father, so stricken with grief over the loss of his wife that he can't hardly function in his daily life, and think, well, here's an opportunity. That dude wiped your butt, Daniel. He deserved better from you. Number 2, not Grandpa 2. Nicole Taylor from the United Kingdom scammed her own grandfather, Norman Glover, an 80-year-old retired soccer referee. Taylor exploited her grandfather's vulnerability and trust, ultimately stealing his life savings amounting to £37,000. Over a span of 14 months, Taylor systematically drained her grandfather's bank account, frequently taking out £1,000 per day. But instead of using the money on anything worthwhile, she frittered it away with vacations, tattoos, contraband, and other frivolous expenses. Norman Glover, who once led a respected life as a prominent referee, found himself at the mercy of his granddaughter's exploitation after he was diagnosed with dementia. Taylor exploited her power of attorney to divert funds meant for his care into her own account, leaving him dependent on charity. Norman's daughter, Caroline Spindler, spoke out about the family's outrage when they found out what Taylor was doing. Caroline talked about how her father had supported Taylor even though they weren't biologically related and had nurtured a close relationship with her. Their relationship was a testament to Norman's compassion, as Taylor was actually his step-granddaughter, the biological granddaughter of his second wife, Judith Glover. Despite their lack of biological ties, Norman treated Taylor as if she were actual family. As Norman's health deteriorated due to his dementia, Taylor manipulated her way into getting power of attorney and started to shift funds from his accounts to her own. Caroline, who's Norman's actual daughter, was concerned about the power of attorney arrangement, but Taylor and her family ignored her. Taylor also managed to remove Caroline as the next of kin and had obtained power of attorney without her knowledge. This allowed her to continue her scam unchecked as she spent lavishly using Norman's funds. Taylor's exploitation of her grandfather began when his dementia became more severe and she stole his wallet. Norman told Caroline, but sadly, she dismissed him as being confused and agitated due to his condition. The situation began to unravel when Judith Glover, Taylor's biological grandmother and Norman's second wife, passed away due to bowel cancer. Following this event, Caroline initiated legal illegal actions, and Norman's bank accounts were examined, leading to an investigation by the Office of the Public Guardian. Ultimately, Taylor's activities were uncovered, leading to her arrest. In court, she admitted to theft and was sentenced to 14 months in jail. While the family took solace in the fact that justice had been served, the emotional scars and devastation caused by Taylor's actions remain. Fortunately, Norman Glover's bank, TSB, agreed to reimburse him in full under their fraud refund guarantee, bringing some relief to a situation marked by betrayal and heartbreak. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay tuned right here for our past release on some more of the most ruthless scammers. Number 1. Fake plastic surgeon. Matteo Pablito posed as a world-renowned plastic surgeon. As Dr. Matthew Mode, no relation to Edna, Pablito managed to fool both medical professionals and patients alike. And this wasn't the first time he had attempted such a ruse. Pablito had already been exposed for a similar con in his native Italy a few years before, although he managed to evade jail time at that time. During his most recent charade, Pablito assumed the persona of Dr. Matthew Mode and capitalized on the prestige that came with the identity. He worked in esteemed clinics within Bucharest, Romania, where he carried out surgeries on unsuspecting patients. But Pablito's lack of medical qualifications eventually raised eyebrows among his colleagues, particularly when his technique during medical procedures was called into question. Pablito struggled to perform basic medical tasks, such as holding a syringe correctly or maintaining proper hand hygiene. Pablito maintained an active presence on social media, positioning himself as a world-class plastic surgeon. His Facebook and Instagram accounts showcased him dressed in scrubs, seemingly in the midst of surgery, accompanied by captions touting his trustworthiness and commitment to patient safety. He posted a series of before and after images of supposed patients who had undergone procedures ranging from breast surgery to Botox injections. The gravity of Pablito's deception became more evident as investigations delved deeper. It was revealed that he had operated on 28 individuals across 5 private clinics in Romania, all while lacking the necessary authorization to practice medicine in the country. His procedures led to the suffering of some patients, and one woman reportedly experienced complications after undergoing breast surgery performed by Pablito. Pablito finally faced consequences for his actions when he was sentenced to nearly 4 years in jail in Bucharest for charges including fraud and intellectual forgery. Despite his efforts to evade justice, including attempting to flee the country, the court upheld his sentence. But how was he holding the syringes when his nurses noticed his inexperience? Like an ice pick? The nurses all looking at each other like, okay, our job is now to keep this patient alive. Who are some of the worst people to invest your money with? Would it be with Stephen He Quinn, who blew the millions he stole on sugar babies, or would it be with Aziz Kam Mirza, who faked a crypto coin and scammed all of his investors? Let's get right into it. Number 4. Sugar babies. Stephen He Quinn was a very successful cryptocurrency trader. Stephen, who was born in Australia, developed an algorithm that monitored crypto exchanges around the world. He enjoyed playing video games and loved to live the high life. Stephen was making so much money that he leased a $23,000 a month 3-bedroom luxury apartment in 50 West. 50 West is a New York City 64-story high-rise with views of Lower Manhattan. The apartment also had a pool, sauna, hot tub, steam room, and even a golf simulator. Stephen was a math whiz who attended the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. He was accepted into a program there and planned to use blockchain technology to improve speeds for foreign exchange transactions. Quinn also attended an online college in San Francisco called Minerva Schools. Stephen said in an interview that he planned on becoming a physicist, but he dropped out of college instead. Eventually, he got an internship with a Chinese firm where he was hired to create a way to trade crypto between the US and China. Stephen moved to New York City and started a company called Virgil Sigma. At first, Virgil was claiming 500% returns, which quickly brought in more investors. The Wall Street Journal did a profile on Stephen in 2018, and Virgil continued to attract new investors. Quinn claimed he was trading at 39 exchanges all around the world, but in reality, he was spending the money on his own personal expenses and also investing in undisclosed areas like initial coin offerings. Eventually, investors started reporting they were missing money and filed complaints. At one point, 9 investors with $3.5 million in funds asked to cash out, but Stefan convinced them to transfer their investments into another company he owned called VQR Multi-Strategy. VQR still has assets, and he was able to conceal that Virgil's balances were fabricated. Stefan tried to withdraw $1.7 million from VQR and explained to the head trader that the money was to repay loan sharks in China and that he didn't have money to pay them on his own. He claimed that he borrowed the money from them to start the businesses and that they might do anything to collect the debt. All in all, Stefan had stolen nearly $90 million by the time the SEC got involved. Stefan claimed that he had trust and commitment issues that stemmed from a girlfriend who cheated on him with a man who had more money than he did. He said that he then started to pay sugar babies to be his companion, and that's where most of the stolen money went. Quinn went on to explain the reason he rented a 3-bedroom apartment at 50 West was because at any given time, he always had 3 sugar babies. He also later explained that he felt he was living in a video game. When it was announced that Stefan's companies were under investigation, he was in a hotel room with a sugar baby in South Korea. He explained that this was the lowest point of his life, and he asked her to stay another day, but she wanted more money. Stefan said that he finally realized it wasn't a real relationship and agreed to turn himself in 2 days later. Stefan was charged with securities fraud, and he pled guilty in 2021. He was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison, as well as 3 years of supervised release. Stefan was also forced to forfeit nearly $54.8 million. Number 3. Money trees. Andrew Skeen and Omari Bowers were supposed to be businessmen in charge of teak tree farms in the Amazon rainforest. Their company, Global Forestry Investments, had offices in Sao Paulo, Brazil, London, Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. The 2 men set up 3 farms, Bellum Sky, Parasky, and Paragrosso Plantation, and told investors that not only would they earn very profitable returns, but they would also help to protect the Amazon jungle. They also promised that they would build homes for the tree farmers, a performing arts center, and a school for the children. Teak is a type of hardwood that's very suitable for weather-resistant products. The trees are native to Asia, but plantations are often found in South America. Teak has a high strength and high oil content, and it's popular for making outdoor furniture, flooring, countertops, and building boats. Teak has been used as a material to build boats for over 2,000 years because, in addition to its high strength, teak is also very resistant to rotting, fungus, and mildew. The wood also doesn't shrink very much. Teak is also used to make doors and window frames, and it's resistant to termites and other insects. With all of these uses, it's not hard to imagine that it sells for a good price. Andrew and Omari would tell prospective investors that in this case, money actually did grow on trees. They also said that all of these plantations were being developed and that they were secure and well managed. In reality, nothing was happening on the ground, and the 2 men were withdrawing cash to spend on themselves. Skeen and Bowers held a champagne event and claimed investors would see a return between 10 and 20%, but it was all a hoax. Between 2010 and 2015, the men had taken over 35 million pounds and spent the money on their lavish lifestyles. The 2 men were using other companies to route the money and conceal that they were spending it on things like a Bentley Continental GT and a lavish wedding. After Global Forestry Investments went bankrupt, Skeen and Bowers tried to hide the funds and even obtain additional investors. All in all, over 2,000 people were scammed out of their savings and pensions. Eventually, Andrew and Omari were investigated and charged with conspiracy to defraud and misconduct. They were brought to court and were convicted of these crimes and sentenced to 11 years in prison. Number 2. Get burned. Chris Burns was a well-known investment advisor from Atlanta, Georgia. He had a local radio show and has appeared on Fox Business several times as well. Chris started a company called Investis Advisors and claims he was developing a peer-to-peer lending program. Chris explained to clients that businesses in need of money would borrow from them and pay back the loans with up to 20% interest or as a lump sum. From February 2017 until September 2020, Chris sold around $10 million in promissory notes to at least 40 investors. The SEC said the peer-to-peer lending program was a sham and that Burns was actually spending the money to fund his lifestyle. He bought $1 million lake house, a boat, cars, paid business expenses, and repaid earlier investors like any other Ponzi scheme. Chris was also purchasing thousands of dollars worth of airtime for his radio show so he could elevate his status in the Atlanta financial community. He also married his wife Meredith, and they had a joint bank account with $150,000. In September of 2020, Chris started to ramp up the scam and received $320,000, which he transferred to his his personal bank account or withdrew the money. Sometimes he even asked investors to meet at a local Dunkin' Donuts so they could pay their investments in cash. On September 23rd, Chris entered into a divorce agreement with his wife and transferred many of their joint assets, including the deed to their house, to her for $10. The next day, he transferred $165,000 to a personal checking account and disappeared. The SEC said that Chris became aware they were investigating him during this time. After Chris went on the run, the FBI charged him with a mail fraud scheme, and a default judgment was entered in the SEC lawsuit that was filed against him and his companies. Chris would have to pay a civil fine of $652,629 if he's caught. He hasn't been seen since he left home on September 24th, 2020, but the vehicle he was driving was found abandoned in Dunwoody, Georgia. The FBI reported they froze various bank accounts for his businesses, and a federal arrest warrant was issued for Chris on October 23rd, 2020. But so far, there's been no action. Burns was also ordered to pay $12 million to the people he scammed, assuming he's ever caught. His now ex-wife Meredith agreed to return $320,000 in funds he transferred to her as well. An attorney said there are two explanations for Chris Burns' disappearance. One possibility is that he's living off the grid and is trying to hide with a new identity. The other possibility is that Chris committed suicide when he was faced with being arrested. Chris is still wanted by the FBI. Number 1. Habibi coin. Aziz Mirza said he was an entrepreneur and ran multiple companies in technology, real estate, automotive, luxury rental, cryptocurrency, investment, and media industries. Mirza is Canadian and lived in the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. He drove supercars and has over 800,000 followers on his Instagram. Mirza also said he ran an annual food drive for Ramadan that has fed over 35 million people. He and his brother Rocky got associated with an online community called the Muslim Entrepreneur Network, or MEN. They used MEN to organize get-rich-quick seminars and advertise their investment business called the Leverage Program. Com introduced his older brother Rocky to the team at MEN and said he was a math genius and the Steve Jobs of the Muslim world. Mirza also launched another business called the International Success Group, which was supposed to be a subscription-based educational website where Mirza would teach people how to better invest their money. It shouldn't be a surprise that Mirza and Rocky were scamming people. Anyone who's offering a get-rich-quick seminar is up to no good, and Mirza used cliche tactics like promising people they'd be able to quit their jobs. During a seminar in 2017, Com's brother Rocky told prospective investors that they would become profitable within the very first year and guaranteed financial freedom. After that seminar, around 1,200 people signed up for the program. Initially, the minimum cost to join was £5,000, but as time went by, the new members paid between £15,000 and £25,000 to sign up. By January 2019, the Leverage Program had made over £4 million. The International Success Group was also converted from an educational website to an investment program. People were told they would get a 10% return within a year and spent between $5,000 to $150,000 to join. These people were from the US, UK, Canada, and the UAE. Com had invited some of the prospective clients to see his apartment at the Burj Khalifa and told them he was a real estate developer in Dubai. He not only guaranteed 10% returns on their investment, but also told them he would pay out of his own pocket if anything went wrong. As is typical with Ponzi schemes, Mirza used some of the money paid by new investors to pay back old ones. He also had wired £1.8 million to the bank account of a company that was owned by a third brother. Mirza also spent a huge amount of money on his personal expenses. The brothers were also funding various businesses around the world. One of these business ventures was a UK taxi app called Empty Trip. Mirza said that this app would naturally revolutionize the world, and investors were told it was in the final stages of discussion with UK regulators. The UK Department for International Trade has no record of any meeting with the brothers, and the current director of Empty Trip is Rocky's nephew. The brothers were reported to the Metropolitan Police in London, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and the Dubai Police. Com also said that money collected from the International Success Group was being spent on the construction of a villa in Dubai, but he refused to show anyone the place or share any details about the property, saying that it could sabotage the project. Com launched a cryptocurrency called Habibi coin, which is supposed to be Sharia compliant and backed by real estate. It was described as a way to help members participate in fractional real estate ownership without needing a high income or good credit. Once again, people rushed to invest as Mirza promised big returns, but the currency was actually worthless and wasn't listed on any crypto exchanges. Mirza claimed that Habibi coin was being acquired by a larger company, but then he stopped posting about it completely. An investor from Greece spent £17,000 $100,000 on Habibi after meeting Mirza at his Burj Khalifa apartment. The investor said that Mirza told him he was worth $500 million and that he became wealthy after investing early in companies like Airbnb and LinkedIn. Eventually, Mirza was arrested in Dubai and charged with fraud. He was sentenced to 6 months in jail and fined $75,500, and also sentenced in another case to 6 months and fined $140,000, and will then be deported. Dubai is probably the last place you ever want to go to jail. While this may sound like a slap on the wrist, a lawyer that's familiar with the case said Mirza is unlikely to get out of jail unless he pays back investors who have filed other cases against him. Even though he has been sentenced, the civil cases are still pending and will cause him to remain locked up. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comment section whether or not you'd forgive a family member if you caught them scamming you.